I want to share with you an exercise that I often do for myself and just humor me, play along, follow along, and I'll explain why I was doing this exact exercise last week. So, what I want you to do is, I want you to think of something that you don't think kids should participate in that adults might take them to. Think of something you don't think children should not be involved in this. Be anything. If you need help thinking of some things, I'll tell you there are things that I often hear about, like, I don't think kids should be around guns or anything to do with guns. It could be, I don't think kids should be around political activities like protests. I've heard things like kids should not be around LGBTQ plus activities like drag queen story hour. I don't think kids should be part of conversion therapy. Now, I'm only talking about legal things. And whether we like it or not, conversion therapy is legal in some countries. And in the United States, it's legal in 24 states. So, not everywhere in the country, but in 24 states, it is legal. So, I'm just talking about legal things. Now, once you think of that thing that you're like, I really don't think kids should be participating in that, I want you to think about how far you would go to stop it. What are you willing to do if you think kids really should not be part of this? What are you willing to do to stop it? Some people might answer, well, nothing. I just don't agree with it, but people can do what they're going to do. Some people might think, well, I would talk to the adults involved. Some people might say, I'd protest. I'd stand outside wherever and I'd protest and make it difficult and challenging to go there. Some people might say, I would work on legislation. I would try to work on legislation so they couldn't. It wasn't even an option. And some people might go beyond that. A common activity done these days is doxing. And if you don't know what doxing is, it's where you could take film of somebody doing something or the person's picture, and then you put their name, their home address, and their home personal phone number, personal information about them on the internet. So now that you kind of have an idea of that, this is the activity I mentioned I did last week when I had a conference canceled. I was supposed to speak at a conference last week for families with transgender, non binary, gender creative, gender questioning kiddos. And it was canceled. It was canceled because of a security risk that they became aware of, that they could not ensure the family's safety at the level in which they had guaranteed them, ensured them that they would. And so they made the difficult decision to cancel. Quite honestly, I think the right decision to cancel the conference. And this was the exercise I did. I do it to try to have some understanding, to try to have some compassion, to try to come up with solutions of how to make this world a better place. What can we do? What can be done? And so you might think, well, good for you, Shannon. I don't really care. This doesn't affect me. I don't have transgender, non binary kiddos in my life. And I want to say to you, and what I'm going to explain through this podcast is it does affect you. It should matter to you. It has an impact on you, whether you have transgender, non binary, gender creative kiddos in your life or not. And so, what I'm going to go through today is I'm going to talk a little bit about the conference so you can understand it. I'm going to do something I don't typically do, which is I'm going to tell you my feelings, my reaction to the cancellation. Why don't I typically do it? Doesn't feel very professional to me and my own rules on professionalism. But I think it's important to share. I'll take away this stone face professional facade and I will be honest. Then I'm going to talk about why it matters to everyone, why this is important and affects everybody. And as always, anytime I see problems, I hate throwing problems out there without some solutions. Of course, there are always more out there, but I'm going to present to you some solutions. And to finish things off, is I'm going to answer the original exercise. I'm going to share with you the original exercise that I shared with you, the questions above, and what my answers are and were. So, this conference has been around for a long time, but it's been around for families since 2007. That's right. Been helping families since 2007. And what the conference aims to do is brings lots of experts and voices in to help families to educate them about gender affirming care, to educate them on their legal rights as a family, to educate them on how to advocate. And it also is a way to provide support. There are people there that facilitate groups so that the families can have a support meeting and have that experience with other families with these beautiful kids as well as it often has activities for the kids, playful things. They get to be themselves, they get to play dress up any way they want. They know they can be themselves. And at the end of the conference, there's always a parade of the young kids. And as well as there's a high school group that gets a chance to hang out and talk and share and just get to be. So that's the way the conference has been for some time now. And it's a beautiful thing. And so that's why my reaction when I first heard was heartbreak. I was I still have emotions about it, if you can hear. I was completely heartbroken. I was heartbroken to think of these kids who are so amazing and strong throughout the year. Many of these children are the only transgender, non binary, gender creative kids in their areas. And so this was their opportunity, especially for the younger ones, to get to meet other kids just like them. It's a chance to put your guard down, to not be at a place where you have to educate everyone or worry about people's reactions. It was a chance for families just to go and to be. And so many of the kids, especially the younger kids, get so excited to know that there are other kids just like them because they often don't get to see them where they're from. And the truth of the matter is the conferences for families that are available like this have dwindled. This was the last one I knew existed. I think there are smaller ones, but the old school ones, the ones that have been around for quite some time, are no longer. And I think the issue with security is a big deal. And so my heart breaks for these kids to have this amazing opportunity to see that they're not alone, to see the beauty and to be celebrated, to be in a place where they don't have to defend their existence. I worry about how it's explained to them and what they take, however it's explained for them, the messaging they take from them. I worry about these families that were looking forward to this very similar things, not to have to defend their support, their affirmation, to be able to gain a lot of knowledge from different experts on how to navigate the journey with their kids. Now, if you're listening to me right now and you don't think kids should transition, that may not mean anything to you. But we can think of examples where kids feel alone. Maybe it's not for being transgender, but something about themselves and who they are, where they're the only ones in their environment, and how challenging that can be. And some of us have experienced that as well, and in various things, in various ways, whether it's from our faith or from our ethnicity. We can list on and on and on, but where we feel like we're the only ones. And to have that opportunity to meet people that have, as far as that piece of ourselves, that similar identity, so that we don't feel so alone, that we can see there are others like us. And especially for kids, and taking that away. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I'm just trying to spell out what this really was like and what it was really about. For me, I give talks all the time. I can do it on my podcast if I want. I do it within my school for engendering inclusivity. Me not talking, not an issue. All I can think about were these families and these kids, especially now during an election year, especially when there's so much rhetoric, so much disinformation, so much things they can hear, denying their existence, questioning them. This was a real opportunity of community, of being in community and strength. And so I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken to have that taken away. And why this affects everybody is that we should be allowed to have a space where we can be ourselves. Gender may not be the thing where you need that community, but we all need community in some way. And to have that threatens such a core value of who we are. As humans, I think it's really important to be in community with each other. And to threaten that and take it away is a threat to everybody. It's a threat to our well being. Because even if you think, like, well, that's not me, Shannon, that I don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about it yet. You don't have to worry about it now. But when I was listing those things of what you think kids should or shouldn't do, maybe there are things that kids should absolutely be able to do that. I do that with my kids, and it really makes me angry when people think I shouldn't and stop me. Right. What would that be like if that was next? Even if you think that'll never be next, I would offer that you're fooling yourself. Unless it's conversion therapy, but that's another story, another podcast for another time. But some of the other things. So we have to decide as a society how we want to go about it. If we disagree about some things, one is it looking at the humanity of people, understanding that whether you agree with something or not, whether you have the accurate information to understand that this is nature and people having biodiversity within ourselves, we all are diverse from each other. None of us are exactly alike. And to stop seeing that humanity, that affects all of us. So, what are the solutions? The first thing is educate yourself. But the second thing is whether it's even saying simply, I don't see things the way you do. When you hear people, they are giving disinformation or misinformation, that you hear them talking about affecting people in ways that you wouldn't do yourself, just speaking up and saying, I don't see the things the way you do. Sometimes just that alone. And sometimes we're afraid because what if they challenge you and they want to know? And I don't feel like having that confrontation. You get to decide. You can take on the conversation if you want, or you can also say something to the effect of, you can see things the way you want. I don't see things the same way. I'm not interested in argument or debate. And yes, some of you are like, that's not fair. You brought it up. No, you didn't bring it up. They brought it up. You're just sharing that you don't agree. You get to put the boundaries for yourself on what you want to do. And There is such a tendency to be afraid to speak up. We need more people speaking up because this is one example of many in this world of people not understanding and then taking action from that lack of understanding. And that action is affecting the kids. That action is affecting children. It is affecting their well being. To understand that there are people out there that deny who they are. And in this case, it's about gender. But next time, it could be about something else. So we have to be willing to speak up in some way, shape, or form. But it starts with educating ourselves. And this is why healthcare providers, you especially, need to be educated because gender is a part of biology. It is biodiversity. And if we don't understand the background of it, the fact that it is biodiversity, the difference between gender identity and biological sex, if we don't understand some of the neurophysiology, we can't do our jobs. I'm not asking you to become an expert. I'm just asking you to do the work to understand that this is a natural part of biology and to be able to affirm and move forward with that. Because we as a medical community are behind. And it starts by starting to speak up. We need the education in our medical schools because the more we know, then we help everyone. We educate the culture on what is biology. We are part of that. We are a huge part of affirming the natural biology of humans. That is what we do. And so that's why I focus so much on healthcare providers. You are part of the change we need. And for those that aren't healthcare providers, your impact is no less. For everyone that says, hey, I don't agree with that, or hey, I see things differently, whether you take it beyond that or leave it there and say, I don't really want to argue, I just want to let you know that if I'm sitting here in silence, it's not because I agree with you. Whatever feels right to you. But when we begin to use our voices, then it's understood what is the community standard? What are most people agreeable on? And setting that standard that, hey, you may not be informed yet. You may not have complete understanding. I'm here to help you. And this is our limits. These are our boundaries. This is what is acceptable and what's not. So educate and find the ways in which you can speak up. At the very least, you can speak up with your vote. A step beyond that is you can speak up by reaching out to your representatives and letting them know what matters to you. Even if it means you don't want to have a debate with somebody, you don't have to. But there are various ways in which to speak up and let it be known what you want your community standards to. So my answer to the exercise at the beginning, I think the biggest thing that I really have a hard time with is conversion therapy. Probably not a surprise. How far would I be willing to go? I definitely would work on changing legislation. I definitely would see what I could do to support and help those kids. What I would not do is put them or their families at risk. I personally, and I know many of you, even people that view gender the way I do, aren't going to agree with me, and you don't have to. That's the thing about the work I do. You never have to agree with me. But if you want to know from me, I think doxing people is a really bad practice for anyone. I think it is dangerous. I think it is dangerous for the people involved. I think it's dangerous for the families. I do not agree with it. telling people's home address in a way that brings up animosity and anger towards them, I think is completely unsafe. And as much as I think conversion therapy is life threatening to individuals, I have very strong opinions on conversion therapy. I still would not dox those families. I wouldn't. I would do everything in my power to help protect and save them, but I would not put anyone's lives at risk. That's my answer to the question. And I think that answer makes me more heartbroken. I know that people aren't going to see things the same way I do. I know we're all going to have different answers, but it makes me heartbroken to think that people are willing to hurt. I'm going to say it. They are willing to hurt the kids and the families that need the most support. And they're willing to do it in a way that I can't even imagine in my worst case scenario I'd be willing to do. And I know we're all different and I know we all have different views. That doesn't change the fact that I feel heartbroken and inspired. Inspired to help bring the education needed for the change. Inspired to speak up more. And I'm hoping that you will be inspired to do more too. I'm hoping you will be inspired to educate yourself and continue going. I'm hoping you will be inspired to speak up in whatever way feels right to you. Have a great week.